The unthinkable act. The news hit Earth like a thunderclap. A human child, the innocent son of one of Earth's highest-ranking diplomats, was dead. He had been brutally murdered by the Galactic Council, the powerful coalition of alien species that govern much of the galaxy. No one knew exactly why the Council had ordered his death, but the result was clear. A child had been killed, and the entire human race was in rage. The child, Lucas, was only 7 years old. He had been on a diplomatic mission with his parents, visiting a neutral planet in the galactic core. The Council's agents, in their cold and emotionless way, had executed him without warning or reason. The shockwaves of his death spread throughout the galaxy, but none were more affected than the people of Earth. As the news made its way across the planets, the first reactions were disbelief. Surely this was a mistake, Earth's leaders thought. Maybe there had been a misunderstanding, a terrible error that could be fixed with an apology. But as more details emerged, it became clear that this wasn't a mistake. This was no accident. The Galactic Council had killed Lucas deliberately, and no one seemed to care. In the heart of Earth's government, a group of high-ranking officials sat in silence, processing the information. They were shocked, but not surprised. Many of them knew that humanity had been at odds with the Galactic Council for years. They had always been treated as lesser beings, looked down upon as primitive, unimportant. But this was different. This wasn't just a slap in the face. This was an act of brutality. A quiet murmur ran through the room as the weight of the situation began to sink in. Earth's people were furious, demanding justice, but Earth's leaders knew that a simple diplomatic protest wouldn't be enough. The Council had taken something precious from them, something they could never get back: the life of a child. Do we just let this slide? General Blackwood, one of Earth's top military leaders, asked, breaking the silence. Do we just sit back and watch while they continue to treat us like nothing? They've killed our own, the child of one of our own. We can't let this go. His words echoed in the room. For years, Earth had been a part of the Galactic Council, but always as a second-class member. Humans had never been respected by the other species, never truly seen as equals. Now, the murder of Lucas had turned the simmering anger into something far more dangerous: a thirst for revenge. The diplomats in the room shifted uncomfortably. They had seen tension with the Council before, but this was different. A child's life had been taken, a life that had been full of promise and hope. No amount of negotiations could undo that. But it was when President Johnson spoke up that everything changed. We will not just sit back and let this pass. We will act. The room went quiet. Everyone knew what those words meant. Earth was no longer going to tolerate the Galactic Council's treatment. But what could they do? How could they stand up to a power that controlled so much of the galaxy? President Johnson looked out the window, his voice steady, but filled with a growing determination. There is one thing that the Council doesn't know, something they've been hiding for centuries. There were murmurs of confusion. What could Earth possibly have that could stand against the might of the Galactic Council? What is it, sir? One of the advisors asked. A slow smile crept across Johnson's face. We have an ancient fleet, a fleet that was hidden away long ago, a fleet that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Gasps filled the room. An ancient fleet, hidden away for centuries. This was something no one had heard of before, not even the highest-ranking officials. The Council had always thought Earth was weak, technologically backward, but they had no idea what Earth had been keeping hidden. For centuries, Earth had been quietly building a fleet of advanced ships, far beyond the technology the rest of the galaxy had seen. This fleet was the result of secret projects, funded by the most powerful human factions, and it was designed for one purpose: to protect humanity, no matter the cost. It had been dormant for years, its existence known only to a select few. Now, the time had come to wake it up. This fleet, President Johnson continued, was created to ensure humanity would never again be at the mercy of anyone. We have the power to strike back. We will take action against the Council, and we will show them that humanity is not to be underestimated." The decision was made. Earth's ancient fleet would rise from the shadows, and with it, humanity's revenge. But this was just the beginning. There was much to be done, and the first step was to ensure the fleet was ready to face the most powerful force in the galaxy. The next few days were a blur of preparations. Across the planet, secret bases came to life as workers and engineers scrambled to prepare the fleet for battle. Ships that had been dormant for centuries were dusted off, repaired, and outfitted with the most advanced weapons and technology Earth had ever known. The fleet was massive, built with enough firepower to challenge the Galactic Council itself. But there were problems. The Council's ships were powerful, and Earth's fleet, though ancient, was still relatively small. The Council had numbers on their side, and their technology was advanced, even by Earth's standards. A direct confrontation would not be easy. They would need a plan, a strategy that would allow them to take down the Council's fleet while minimizing losses. As the preparations continued, a growing sense of urgency filled the air. The Council would not wait. They would retaliate soon, and Earth had to be ready. The ancient fleet was Earth's last hope. If it failed, humanity would fall. But if it succeeded, the Council would learn a valuable lesson. Humanity was not to be underestimated. On the day the fleet was finally ready, the world held its breath. Earth had one chance, one opportunity to show the galaxy that they would no longer be pushed around. The ancient fleet was about to unleash its full power, and the Galactic Council was about to feel the consequences of their actions. As the fleet took off from Earth's hidden launch sites, a new chapter in human history began. The ancient ships soared into space, ready for war, and the message to the Galactic Council was clear. Earth was no longer a weak, defenseless planet. Earth had power, and Earth was ready to fight. The days following the murder of the child were filled with a growing sense of urgency. President Johnson, General Blackwood, and the other leaders of Earth had made their decision. The fleet would rise. As the world braced for what was to come, hidden military bases across Earth began to stir back to life. Beneath the surface, far from prying eyes, Earth's ancient fleet was housed in secret underground facilities, tucked away in isolated corners of the planet. For centuries, no one had seen them, no one had known they existed. These ships were older than most human civilizations, created in an age when Earth's brightest minds foresaw the need to protect humanity from external threats, before the Galactic Council ever considered the planet worth their attention. Now that foresight would prove to be humanity's salvation. The fleet wasn't just made of ships. It was a vast armada of war vessels, each one unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their designs were ancient, crafted from materials that had long since been forgotten by the rest of the universe. Their engines were powered by energy sources so advanced that even the most sophisticated alien technologies couldn't understand them. And their weaponry was devastating, a legacy of human ingenuity, made to bring down the most formidable foes. Each ship was a giant, covered in armor so thick that it could withstand direct hits from laser fire. Some were shaped like massive pyramids, others like sleek elongated cruisers, but all were equipped with hyper-advanced weaponry, massive plasma cannons, electromagnetic railguns, and pulse weapons that could reduce a starship to rubble in a single shot. As the fleet came to life, crews of specially trained personnel rushed to their posts. They were Earth's elite, the best pilots and tacticians, selected from the most advanced training academies. The fleet would not be controlled by computers alone. Humanity's finest minds would direct its course. The ships were ready, but the crews still needed to prepare. In the command center, General Blackwood watched as the status reports came in. The fleet was operational, but the preparation wasn't just about the ships. It was about the fight to come. The Galactic Council would be expecting Earth's leaders to cower in fear, to beg for forgiveness. They would not expect Earth to strike back, especially not with such overwhelming power. "We have to make sure we strike first," Blackwood muttered to himself. His mind raced through strategies. We can't wait for them to make the next move. President Johnson was there, standing beside him, his face grim. We have one chance to show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. As the fleet assembled in Earth's orbit, tension filled the command centers. A countdown began. The decision had been made. They were no longer negotiating, no longer pleading for peace. The fleet would engage the Galactic Council, and the first strike would be swift, unpredictable, and devastating. The entire world watched through satellites and communications as the giant ships rose from the surface, one by one, into the cold vacuum of space. The sheer scale of the fleet was enough to send chills down the spines of anyone who saw it. Hundreds of massive warships, each one capable of laying waste to entire fleets, now stood ready to face the might of the Galactic Council. But what the Council didn't know was that these ships had a hidden power, one that could give Earth an edge in the battle. Each ship was equipped with a unique cloaking technology, an ability to disappear from sensors, to strike without warning, to be invisible in the vastness of space. The Council had no idea that such technology existed, and that would be Earth's greatest weapon in the upcoming conflict. As the fleet entered deep space, Blackwood and his team began to communicate with other human colonies. They were ready for war, but they needed to coordinate with every possible ally, both human and those who still supported Earth's independence. The galaxy was large, and even with an ancient fleet at their disposal, humanity couldn't take on the entire galaxy alone. There was talk of forming alliances, reaching out to those species who had been oppressed by the Galactic Council, the ones who were fed up with the Council's cruel rule. But for now, Earth stood alone. The fleet was humanity's only hope. Back on Earth, the news was spreading. People were watching the launch of the fleet in real time, their hearts filled with a mixture of fear and pride. The world had never seen anything like this. The ancient fleet was humanity's answer to the Galactic Council's brutal treatment. The world held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. And then the first strike came. From the heart of Earth's fleet, a signal was sent to the Galactic Council, a simple message that was transmitted across the stars. We are coming. Prepare to face the wrath of humanity. It was a message that carried more weight than any diplomat's plea for peace. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Earth had been pushed too far, and now the time for mercy was over. But the Galactic Council had no idea what they were about to face. As Earth's ships vanished into the depths of space, cloaking themselves from enemy sensors, they prepared to strike at the heart of the Council. No one could predict how the battle would unfold. No one could know if the fleet would succeed in its mission. But what was certain was this: the Galactic Council would never again underestimate the power of Earth. The silence of space was broken by the rumble of engines, a sound that shook the very fabric of the galaxy. The fleet, cloaked and hidden from the Council's sensors, drifted silently through the void. Hundreds of massive warships, each one bristling with unimaginable firepower, moved as one. Humanity had no intention of playing by the rules of war the Galactic Council had set. They would strike without warning, and they would strike hard. General Blackwood stood at the helm of the command ship, his fingers tight on the controls. His mind raced, calculating every move, every potential risk. The fleet was hidden for now, but it wouldn't stay that way for long. Earth's ancient ships, designed to blend into the shadows of space, were undetectable for the moment. But once they attacked, there would be no turning back. The fleet would reveal its power, and Earth would forever be known as the force that shook the galaxy. In the heart of the fleet, each ship's captain prepared for their part in the coming battle. Some would launch the first assault. Others would stand by, ready to bring their devastating weapons to bear when the time was right. The commanders knew their roles well. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. This wasn't just a mission. This was a battle for survival. This was Earth's chance to show the galaxy that humanity could not be crushed, that no matter how far the Galactic Council had pushed them, Earth's resolve was unbreakable. As the fleet drifted closer to the Galactic Council's territory, the silence grew heavier. Every person aboard the ships understood the gravity of what was about to happen. There would be no turning back from this. Once they attacked, Earth's message would be clear. You may have underestimated us before, but not anymore. Then it came, an order transmitted through the secure communication channels, the green light flashing across the screens. Initiate the strike. In an instant, the ships of Earth's fleet began to activate their weapons. Massive cannons charge, energy surging through their systems. But instead of firing right away, the fleet executed a perfect tactical maneuver. They split into smaller groups, making it impossible for the Council's forces to track them all. It was a strategy that had been perfected over decades of planning. The first group, a squadron of 5 massive ships, descended from the depths of space. They approached the Council's military outposts without warning, their cloaking devices still active, allowing them to remain hidden from all radar and sensor systems. They could strike from any direction without giving the enemy a chance to react. The first blast hit hard, too fast, too unexpected. The Galactic Council's command stations on the distant moons of a nearby planet were the first to feel the wrath of Earth's fleet. A single shot from Earth's ancient plasma cannons obliterated one of the Council's outposts, turning it into a cloud of burning debris. The shockwave was felt across the nearby planets, a warning to anyone who dared to stand against humanity. The second and third ships in the squadron followed suit, their weapons unleashing devastating energy waves that tore through the unprepared Council defenses. The Galactic Council had no time to respond. Their sensors, still scrambled by Earth's cloaking technology, couldn't track the incoming assault. They were blind, and in their blindness, they were helpless. General Blackwood watched in silence as the reports came in. The first phase of the strike was successful. Earth's ancient fleet had delivered a message, but this was only the beginning. Now they would make sure the Galactic Council knew that this attack was just the start of something far worse. Prepare for Phase 2, Blackwood ordered calmly. We cannot let them recover. Hit their command fleet next. We finish this before they can retaliate. Back on Earth, the world watched in awe and fear. News outlets broadcast live footage of the strikes, showing the massive explosions in space as the Galactic Council's installations were reduced to nothing. People across the planet cheered, their hearts swelling with pride and relief. For the first time in history, humanity wasn't hiding, begging for mercy, or trying to negotiate peace. They were fighting back. The strikes were like a roar, a declaration that humanity would no longer cower before any power in the universe. But as the fleet moved on, another reality began to set in. This was only the beginning of the war. The Galactic Council was vast, its forces stretched across galaxies. What Earth had done so far was a powerful message, but it wouldn't end with this. The Council would retaliate, and they would retaliate with everything they had. Yet, for now, Earth held the upper hand. Their ancient fleet was still hidden, still operating with the element of surprise, and they had more ships, more weapons, and more strategies waiting to be unleashed. As the first wave of attacks concluded, the fleet scattered into the void once more. The Galactic Council was left reeling from the sudden onslaught. Their communication lines were in chaos, and their military commanders were scrambling to assess the damage. The Council had never faced an enemy like this before. They had underestimated Earth, underestimated humanity's ability to fight back. And now it was too late to stop the storm that was coming. The deafening silence that followed the first wave of attacks soon shattered as the Galactic Council scrambled to mount a counterattack. The Council's fleet, vast and powerful, had been caught off guard by the ferocity and precision of Earth's ancient warships. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were scrambling to adjust to the unforeseen threat. On board the flagship of the Galactic Council, a towering vessel known as the Aegis, the high-ranking officials gathered in the war room. The situation was dire. The initial attack had crippled their outer defenses, and they had lost contact with several of their remote outposts. The Council's supreme commander, Admiral Vexor, was fuming. His arrogance had blinded him to the true strength of Earth. How could this happen? Vexor growled, his voice low with frustration. We knew they had a fleet, but we didn't think it would be this advanced, or this deadly. The officers around him exchanged nervous glances. A few minutes earlier, they had been confident, believing that their forces would easily crush Earth's forces once they were discovered. But now, after the devastating hits, the confidence was gone, replaced with panic and fear. We must retaliate immediately, Vexor said, slamming his fist on the table. Gather every ship in the sector. We will crush them before they can regroup. But even as he spoke, the realization was setting in. Earth had struck first, and now the Galactic Council was playing catch-up. Meanwhile, far from the Council's headquarters, General Blackwood surveyed the reports coming in from the field. His fleet had already launched a second wave of attacks, targeting critical infrastructure on a neighboring planet where the Council's reinforcements were stationed. The ancient warships were tearing through the defenses with ruthless efficiency. The general's face remained stoic, though a flicker of pride shone in his eyes. Humanity had done the impossible. They had struck first, and they had struck hard. But Blackwood knew better than to get comfortable. This battle was far from over. Phase 2 was going as planned. Blackwood reported over the comms to his commanders. Keep up the pressure, hit their supply lines, and cripple their reinforcements. We can't afford to let them regroup. Across the fleet, the ancient ships responded swiftly, launching their next round of strikes. The weapons fired with deadly precision, each shot designed to disable rather than destroy. The strategy was clear: disable the Council's war machines, isolate their fleet, and prevent them from calling for backup. Earth's fleet was small but agile, striking quickly and disappearing before the Council could retaliate. But the Galactic Council was not going to give up so easily. Admiral Vexor had already ordered the launch of his counteroffensive. His fleet, though caught off guard, was now massing in retaliation. He knew that if they didn't act quickly, they would lose their chance to crush Earth once and for all. Vexor had spent decades building the Galactic Council into the most powerful force in the universe. He wasn't about to let some insignificant planet, Earth, tear it all down in a few short days. Prepare the interceptors, Vexor ordered. We'll hunt them down like animals. Our fleet may have been caught off guard, but now we're ready. We will show them the might of the Galactic Council. At that moment, his fleet, now fully mobilized, emerged from the far side of a nearby gas giant, prepared to launch a massive counterattack. Their mission was clear: hunt down Earth's ancient fleet and annihilate it before it could strike again. The first wave of Council interceptors, sleek ships designed for speed and precision, surged forward, their weapons powered up and ready. They spread out in a wide formation, each ship on the lookout for signs of the Earth fleet. Their goal was to force Earth's warships into the open and destroy them before they could retreat. But Earth's fleet had one advantage the Council didn't expect: experience. These ships had been built and fought in wars that no one remembered. They knew how to fight in the shadows, how to strike fast and disappear before the enemy could respond. General Blackwood had anticipated this very move. He knew that the Council's interceptors would come after them in a predictable manner, and he was ready. All ships, move to formation Zeta 9, Blackwood commanded. Let them come to us. We'll wait for them to get close. Then we'll hit them with everything we've got. The fleet shifted in unison, forming a tight defensive pattern that could turn into an offensive strike in an instant. The Earth ships activated their cloaking devices once more, vanishing from sight just as the Council's interceptors came into range. The Council ships fired blindly, their weapons useless against the invisible warships. For a moment, there was chaos. The Galactic Council's interceptors fired on empty space, their weapons lighting up the dark void of space. But the Earth fleet was already gone, slipping into the shadows once again. The interceptors, unable to track their targets, had wasted their energy and time. Then it happened. Earth's fleet emerged from the darkness, and the first strike hit. Plasma bolts flashed across the sky, slamming into the lead interceptor ships. Explosions tore through the fleet, sending debris flying. The Earth warships didn't hesitate. They launched again, their weapons firing with deadly accuracy. Each shot took down a Council ship, and each explosion echoed like a warning. Earth wasn't going to back down. Earth was here to stay. The Galactic Council was stunned. They had never faced a foe like this before. Their technology, their weapons, their sheer numbers, none of it had prepared them for the cunning and skill of humanity. Earth's fleet was not just fighting to survive. They were fighting for vengeance. And as the battle raged on, the message was clear. Earth had no intention of losing. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now the balance of power was beginning to shift. The Earth fleet, though outnumbered and outgunned, fought with a ferocity that the Council had never encountered before. Each blow struck with precision, each maneuver calculated to disrupt the Council's plans. The tides of war were changing, and the Galactic Council, once so sure of its dominance, was now on the defensive. Admiral Vexer paced back and forth in the command center of the Aegis, his mind racing. He had never faced an adversary like this. Humanity had shown itself to be both resilient and unpredictable. No matter how many ships the Council sent after them, Earth's warships always seemed to be one step ahead, vanishing before they could be destroyed and reappearing to strike again. "We've lost contact with 3 more of our fleets," one of the officers reported, his voice shaky. They were in a defensive position near the Andromas sector. Now they're just gone. Vexer slammed his fist on the table, furious. How are they doing this? Another officer quickly chimed in. "They're using cloaking technology, sir. We can't track them when they're hidden. And their attacks are devastating. Each strike is focused on our critical infrastructure. They know exactly where to hit." The Admiral turned sharply, his eyes filled with anger and frustration. "I want those ships found. Now, launch a full-scale offensive. Every available vessel. No more hiding, no more games. We will crush them." But as the command went out, Vexer's heart sank. He knew it was too late. The Earth fleet wasn't just fighting back. They were dismantling the very foundation of the Council's power. The tides of war had shifted, and the Council was losing ground. Meanwhile, on Earth's flagship, the Vanguard, General Blackwood stood at the helm, his eyes glued to the holographic display of the ongoing battle. The image of the Galactic Council's fleet, once so formidable, was now fragmented and faltering. The Earth fleet had dealt them blow after blow, and the enemy was beginning to crack. "We've broken their outer defenses," Blackwood said to his officers, his voice steady, but with a hint of satisfaction. "Now we move in for the final strike. We've come this far. We're not stopping until we've wiped out their ability to fight back." The officers around him nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. This was the moment. Earth had fought to survive, and now they were fighting to win. "Prepare the secondary fleet," Blackwood continued. "We'll send them to target the Council's military outposts. I want those fleets disabled, no reinforcements. We take out their leadership next." The orders were passed, and the Earth fleet quickly went into motion. As Blackwood watched the battle unfold, a sense of pride washed over him. They were winning, not just for survival, but for justice. They were making the Galactic Council pay for the atrocities they had committed. The Galactic Council had underestimated them before, but now, the full might of Earth's ancient fleet was being unleashed. On the front lines, the Earth ships began to break through the Council's defensive perimeter. With each strike, the Council's fleet was torn apart, their once immense armadas now reduced to debris floating in the void. The Earth ships were relentless, each ship's captain knowing exactly what was at stake. "Target their flagship," one of the commanders of Earth's fleet ordered. "We take down the Aegis, and we take down the Council." The Aegis, the symbol of the Galactic Council's power, was now in the crosshairs. The Earth fleet had one final objective: cripple the heart of the Council's military might. The ancient warships lined up, their weapons charged and ready. This would be the moment that decided the fate of the war. The Aegis fired back in desperation, but it was clear they were too late. The Earth ships had already closed in. A barrage of plasma cannons erupted from the Vanguard, striking the Aegis with deadly force. The massive ship shuddered as its shields flickered, struggling to absorb the energy. For a moment, it seemed like it might survive, but then came the second wave. A massive explosion tore through the Aegis, the ship's outer hull breaking apart in a fiery burst. The Council's flagship was crippled, its control systems failing, its weapons firing blindly into space. The symbol of the Galactic Council's power was now reduced to a dying hulk, drifting through the void. Vexor stood on the bridge of the Aegis, watching in horror as his ship, his command, was being torn apart. The reality of their situation hit him like a ton of bricks. They were losing, and losing badly. The humans had done the impossible. We were going to lose, Vexor whispered under his breath. This is the end. The once proud admiral had no answers, only despair. He could see the destruction unfolding around him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The battle was slipping away from the Council, and humanity had already proven that they were not just survivors. They were conquerors. On the battlefield, the Earth fleet pressed forward, moving with precision and purpose. The last of the Council's forces were crumbling, and victory was within their grasp. Earth had struck back, and they had done the impossible. The Council was finished. The Galactic Council, once the most powerful and fearsome authority in the universe, now teetered on the edge of total collapse. The Earth fleet had struck with unrelenting fury, dismantling their defenses and shattering their command structure. Now, in the depths of space, the once proud leaders of the Council found themselves cornered, their ships decimated, their military might crippled. The humans had done the impossible. They had broken the unbreakable. Inside the Council chambers aboard the remaining Council flagship, panic spread like wildfire. Admiral Vexor, still reeling from the catastrophic destruction of the Aegis, had gathered the remaining high-ranking officers in a final desperate attempt to rally what was left of their forces. How could this happen? Vexor's voice trembled with disbelief, his hands shaking. We were invincible. We were the masters of the galaxy. One of the senior officers, Commander Greth, looked down at the table, his face pale and full of regret. We underestimated them. We believed Earth was weak, defenseless, and we paid the price. But we are not defeated yet, Vexor said, trying to regain some semblance of control. We still have forces. A loud, sudden crash interrupted him as an explosion rocked the ship. The entire station shuddered violently, and the lights flickered. Outside the window, the dark expanse of space was filled with the unmistakable silhouette of Earth's warships. The humans had found them, and they were closing in. Sir, they've broken through our last line of defense, another officer said, his voice shaking. We have no more reinforcements. Our fleets have been wiped out. The humans are here. Vexor's face twisted in anger. No, it can't end like this. But deep down, he knew it was already over. His mind flashed to the shattered wreckage of the Aegis, the ship that had once been their greatest symbol of power, and the remnants of their once mighty fleets, now scattered in ruins across the galaxy. The hum of Earth's warships grew louder, their engines closing in. A holographic display projected an image of the Earth flagship, the Vanguard, emerging from the darkness of space, followed by a swarm of other warships. The humans were ready to finish what they had started. Captain Blackwood, General Blackwood's voice crackled over the comms, calm and full of authority. This is it. We've pushed them to the edge. The Galactic Council no longer has the strength to fight back. I give you the order to proceed with the final strike. On board the Vanguard, General Blackwood stood tall, his eyes focused on the holographic battle map. The destruction of the Aegis had been a turning point, but this final strike would ensure the galaxy knew Earth had emerged victorious. The Council's reign was over. They had done the impossible. defeating an empire that had thought itself untouchable. He turned to his crew. "Ready all weapons. We make this one final push. This is for the people they murdered, for every injustice they caused. We strike now, once and for all." The fleet moved forward with deadly precision, every ship in perfect formation. Their weapons were primed, the energy banks fully charged, and the countdown to destruction had begun. For the first time, there was no hesitation. There was no fear. This was the end of the Council's tyranny. Back aboard the Council's flagship, the remaining officers scrambled, their panic reaching its peak. They tried to launch their last few ships, hoping for a miracle, but the Earth fleet was already upon them. The Vanguard led the charge, its massive guns firing a concentrated barrage at the remaining defenses of the Council's ship. The shields flickered and then collapsed under the intensity of the assault. "We have to abandon ship," Commander Greth shouted, his voice breaking through the chaos. "Get to the escape pods now." But it was too late. Another barrage tore through the remaining outer hull, and the flagship began to break apart, its internal systems failing. Fires erupted along the length of the ship, and the once mighty Galactic Council's symbol was nothing more than a burning wreck in space. Vexor, standing amidst the chaos, watched as his command crumbled. He had led the Council's forces with pride, but now it was all unraveling. His once unstoppable fleet was nothing more than dust, scattered across the stars. Outside, the Earth ships continued their relentless assault. The Vanguard and its allies moved in to ensure the destruction was complete. No Council leader would escape this time. The message had been sent. The people of Earth were not to be underestimated. As the last remnants of the Council's power disintegrated, the universe held its breath. The humans had taken their stand, and they had won. The fight was over, but the story of humanity's triumph had only just begun. General Blackwood stood on the command deck of the Vanguard, staring out at the vastness of space. The war was over, and Earth had emerged victorious. The Galactic Council was no more. "Message to all fleets," Blackwood said, his voice resolute. "This victory is just the beginning. We will rebuild what was lost, and we will ensure that no one, no empire, ever dares to challenge us again." The ships of Earth, their engines glowing brightly, began to turn back toward the home planet. The fleet, battered but undefeated, had completed its mission. The victory had been costly, but it was one that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. The Galactic Council, once the unquestioned rulers of the galaxy, had learned the hard way. Underestimating humanity was the greatest mistake anyone could make. The final remnants of the Galactic Council's fleet were scattered across the stars, nothing more than shattered pieces of metal floating aimlessly through the vast emptiness of space. General Blackwood stood at the front of the Vanguard, watching the debris field through the viewing windows. His face was impassive, but inside, a mixture of triumph and sorrow churned. The battle was over, and Earth had won, but the cost had been high. The blood of the innocents, the families, the soldiers lost. He couldn't forget their sacrifices. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. The communications officer turned toward him, a solemn look on her face. "General, we have an incoming transmission from Earth's High Command." He nodded, straightening his back. "Patch it through." The screen flickered to life, and the face of President Ramirez appeared. Her expression was unreadable, but there was a sense of pride in her eyes, a quiet acknowledgement of what had been accomplished. "General Blackwood," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion, "you and your fleet have done the impossible. The Galactic Council is no more. You free humanity from the shackles of their tyranny." Blackwood nodded but said nothing for a moment. His mind was still processing the enormity of what had just happened. "It was the people, Mom," he replied quietly. "They fought with everything they had. Their bravery, their resilience, it gave us this victory. But the cost is something we will carry forever." President Ramirez's face softened. "Indeed, but today, Earth has shown the galaxy that we will never be pushed around. Your victory will resonate through the ages. Humanity is no longer a species to be underestimated." The words hung in the air, heavy with their weight. Blackwood looked back at the fleet, now retreating from the wreckage of the Galactic Council. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the hum of the ship's engines. It was hard to believe that this was the end. This wasn't just the end of a war. It was the end of an era, a shift in the balance of power across the entire galaxy. "We've won, General," Ramirez continued, her voice a bit firmer now. "But our journey doesn't end here. The galaxy will know that Earth is a force to be reckoned with. We need to rebuild, to stand united, and to make sure that no one ever threatens our future again." Blackwood's gaze turned back to the stars. "I understand, ma'am. But even with this victory, we must be vigilant. There will be those who still doubt us, who will try to rise against us. But they will learn. Earth will always rise." A determined silence settled over them both as the significance of their words sank in. It wasn't just the council they had defeated. It was the idea that humanity was weak, unworthy of power. They had shattered that misconception forever. Now, humanity had not only earned its place in the galaxy, but had proven that they could fight and win against the odds. "Prepare to return home, General," Ramirez ordered, her voice unwavering. "The people are waiting for you. We will honor the fallen, but we will also celebrate this victory. This is a new beginning for humanity." As the transmission ended, Blackwood stood still for a moment, letting the weight of her words settle over him. He turned to face the crew on the Vanguard's command deck. Their eyes were filled with relief, their expressions softening with the knowledge that the war was over. But there was no time for celebration yet. The universe was vast, and the victory over the Galactic Council was just the first step. The human race had proven its worth, but now it was time to rebuild. There was no room for complacency. Earth's fleets would need to be strengthened, their defenses improved, and their alliances forged with other races that might see the strength in humanity. General Blackwood knew the galaxy would never be the same again. The Earth that had once cowered in fear now stood tall, its fleet a symbol of power, resilience, and unbreakable will. But there was still much work to do. The galaxy would come to understand Earth's resolve, and they would learn to fear the warriors who had taken down the mighty Galactic Council. "Set course for Earth," Blackwood ordered, his voice filled with renewed determination. "Let's go home." The fleet of ships, now unified by their shared victory, turned towards Earth. The journey back was not just the return of a military force, but the return of a new era. Humanity had won, but this victory was only the beginning of something much greater. The universe would never again underestimate the strength of the human spirit.